One of the biggest reasons for motherhood stress and burnout has less to do with your circumstances and more to do with the emotional weight you carry as a mom. The pressure, tension, criticism, and disappointment that naturally comes with motherhood begins to create an internal struggle within you that builds up an emotional wall over time, distancing you from being present in the moment and robbing you of feeling joy in motherhood. It's kind of like your main focus becomes just getting through the day without letting anything fall through the cracks. But life like that is missing a critical element that God wants you to have in motherhood. Welcome to Conquer Mom Stress, the podcast that helps you stress less and enjoy motherhood more. If you've ever crawled into bed at night completely exhausted, but still feel like there's so much left to do, you are in the right place. I'm your host, Jill Gokul, and I believe that motherhood is meant to feel joyful, not exhausting. Together, we'll uncover what's really fueling your stress and give you the practical tools to conquer it so you can finally feel like the confident mom you were made to be. Also, if you have a specific question or issue you're stressing about, head over to jillgokul.com/ask to submit your question. And who knows, you might just be featured in an upcoming episode so you can get practical, real-world solutions to the exact challenges you're facing. Have you ever looked at your calendar and wondered how the heck you are going to get everything done? With 5 kids all enrolled in their own set of activities, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I find it depressing to look at the calendar. It instantly puts me into task management mode, trying to work out exactly what has to get done and when so that I can get everyone where they need to be, while still figuring out how to keep up around the house, make meals, and get laundry done. In the seasons where this has been really bad, I almost felt like a robot, focused solely on output and proficiency. Now, doesn't that sound like an appealing description of motherhood? Not exactly. This is why motherhood gets a bad rap, because all the pressure as a mom causes you to get overwhelmed with being on top of everything. But that's not how motherhood was meant to feel. Motherhood was meant to feel joyful. Kids are meant to be a blessing to you, not a curse or a drain on your life. Psalms chapter 127 verse 3 says, "Children are a gift from the Lord. They are a reward from him." Verse 5 goes on to say, "How joyful is the man whose quiver is full of them." Said another way, how joyful is the mom whose life is full of children. But that's not what motherhood feels like most days. So where is the disconnect? Why are moms walking around in a brain fog, weighed down by the responsibilities of motherhood, instead of walking around full of joy? I know I've been guilty at times of thinking that when things slow down, I'll finally be able to enjoy life. Or when my kids get older, I'll be out of survival mode and able to enjoy them more. But the truth is, joy is a choice. And it's not reliant on your circumstances. It's reliant on your focus. Here's the thing. When you make your joy contingent on your circumstances, something will always come up to keep you in the stress loop. But when you realize that joy is a choice, you can make that choice at any given moment in your day and feel the shift instantly. Here's what I mean. I remember a day in particular where I was trudging around, knocking things off my to-do list, running kids to their activities, and trying to fit in a few minutes of quality time with each of the kids. I was checking all the boxes of my priorities, but I wasn't filled with joy. I didn't feel happy. I just felt like I was doing what had to be done. At one point in the day, I pulled out my phone and stumbled upon a video of Forrest Frank where he's singing a verse of his song "Okay" while carrying his baby around on his shoulder. The lyrics of the song talked about the mundane things of parenthood, how there are bills that need paid and your kids want you to play with them. While singing, he had a serene smile on his face, filled with so much peace and joy. I was struck by this because it felt like he was talking about every mom's life. And yet he was filled with such a complete sense of joy. It radiated off of him onto me. And I began to be filled with God's joy, peace, and happiness. You know what I'm talking about. That feeling that starts with warmth in the belly, warm contentedness, and it spreads throughout your entire being. As the day went on, that song kept popping up in my mind. And every time it did, I found myself smiling, being filled with God's joy again. It was still a day of dishes, laundry, running kids around, and taking moments to connect with them. But suddenly, all these things had a special sauce added to it. Even though nothing had changed, I found myself smiling and enjoying myself amidst the mundane of motherhood. The moments of connection with my kids were more enjoyable because they were colored with the joy of the Lord. I felt like I was living out the verse that children are a gift from the Lord. How happy is the mom whose life is full of them? Remember, absolutely nothing changed about my circumstances. The only thing that changed was my focus. And the result? My entire emotional experience of motherhood began changing. I found myself more patient. I wanted to engage with my kids. I started laughing more easily, and even hard things felt lighter. We were still as busy as before, but now I felt like I had margin in my day, space to savor the moments of life with joy. This is what happens when the emotional picture in your mind shifts. Most moms live with an internal emotional environment that feels incredibly heavy, and often you don't even realize it. The internal voice sounds like, I'm behind. I should be doing more. I'm failing. I can't keep up. Everything depends on me. Unfortunately, your brain absorbs the way you speak to yourself out loud and quietly in your own mind. That means if your internal relationship with yourself is full of pressure and criticism, your nervous system starts living inside that emotional atmosphere all day long. In essence, your internal dialogue is beating you up, putting your brain in a constant state of fight or flight. So motherhood starts feeling emotionally exhausting because your focus is centered on pressure, expectations, and how you measure up or how you aren't measuring up. This puts you in a constant internal battle of survival against your own self-criticism. And what happens is that you stop showing up as your authentic self, the joyful, peaceful woman that God created you to be. Romans chapter 12, verse 2 says, "Be transformed by the renewal of your mind." Mama, your mind matters deeply. The thoughts you rehearse repeatedly shape your emotional experience of life, and your focus shapes your heart. Here's where it gets really interesting. You have a part in your brain that's job is specifically to prove you are right. It's called the reticular activating system, and it is constantly scanning your environment for evidence to support your emotional state and thoughts. So if you feel like motherhood is overwhelming, your reticular activator will start scanning your life for stress, problems, pressure, unfinished tasks, all for the purpose of finding proof that what you believe is actually true. And in doing so, it filters out all the evidence that proves the contrary. This is why you can be in the same exact circumstance, but experience it in completely different ways. Not by your circumstances changing, but by your focus changing. This is what happened when I saw that Forrest Frank video. It broke my brain out of the stress and overwhelm loop and got my focus on how it's actually possible to have joy in the messy middle of motherhood. The circumstances didn't change, but what I believed about my circumstances did change. And my reticular activator went to work proving that my new focus, my new thoughts were true. As your brain shifts focus, your emotional state shifts, and your nervous system adapts to this new state, giving you a new feeling about motherhood. Think about it. If your mind constantly replays pressure, stress, criticism, and overwhelm, your brain strengthens those neural pathways. But when your brain repeatedly experiences joy, gratitude, warmth, and encouragement, those pathways strengthen instead. This change is called neuroplasticity, and it's your brain's ability to physically rewire itself through repeated thought and emotional patterns, meaning joy can become easier for your brain to access over time. This is the very act of Romans 12:2. You are effectively transformed by the renewal of your mind. When your internal world shifts, motherhood feels different. Not because your responsibilities disappeared, but because your nervous system stopped interpreting your life as one long stressful experience. And that causes you to become more emotionally available, more playful, more patient, and more connected. So the question is, how do you intentionally create this shift? How do you retrain your brain towards joy, encouragement, and emotional lightness? Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 10 says, "The joy of the Lord is your strength." So first, start your morning with encouragement instead of criticism. It's easy to wake up thinking about all the things you have to do and how impossible the day feels. So before your brain starts scanning for problems to prove your life is as overwhelming as you think it is, pause. Choose the day you want to experience. Lay in bed for a moment and just let yourself imagine the kind of day you want to have. You know the one I'm talking about, where things feel easy, you knock stuff out easily, and have space in your day to laugh and enjoy your kids. Remember, your reticular activators will go to work proving that what you're focused on is actually your reality. So be intentional about what you want it to prove. Second, give yourself visual cues that you're happy and content. This is crazy, but as you're getting ready in the morning or anytime you go past a mirror, take a second to actually look at yourself and smile genuinely at your reflection. There's a book called The High Five Habit. In it, Mel Robbins encourages readers to give themselves a high five in the mirror every morning because your brain associates high fives with celebration, support, encouragement, belief, and connection. So when you physically high five yourself in the mirror, your brain begins interrupting patterns of self-rejection, and you start associating yourself with encouragement instead of criticism. Well, a smile works similarly. Your facial expressions send signals back to the brain. Your reticular activator will see that smile in the mirror and use it as proof that you are happy, content, and full of godly peace. Now, don't just paste on a fake smile. Get that smile to reach your eyes. The eyes are the windows of your soul. Even if you're forcing the smile, if you can get it to reach your eyes, your brain will interpret it as real. Just like how watching a movie that you know without a doubt is fake, but it still makes you feel a real response, seeing your own smile in the mirror will do the same. And what's cool is that a smile influences dopamine, serotonin, and emotional regulation. So your body will start responding to the emotional message your face is sending. St. Teresa of Calcutta said, "Peace begins with a smile." And that smile matters more than you think. Not because it magically removes hard things, but because it shifts the emotional message your brain receives throughout the day. And over time, those small moments of joy reshape your nervous system, your perspective, your emotional resilience, and your family atmosphere. That is the power of renewing your mind. So tomorrow morning, before the rush begins, start your day with a smile. Not because you have everything figured out, but because you are in control of setting the tone for your day. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Conquer Mom Stress. If today's conversation encouraged you, hit follow and leave a review. That lets me know that these episodes are hitting the topics you need. And while you're there, share this podcast with another mom who might need to hear it. Your thoughtfulness might just be what she needs to get through the day. Remember, this is your place to pause, rest, and start conquering mom stress, one small step at a time. Motherhood isn't meant to drain the life out of you. It's meant to be lived with joy, even on the messy days. And together, we're going to find that joy again.